Welcome back to the Leadership Forum. It's been a while. We're going to talk about something interesting today and important. Thank you for tuning in. Well, my guest is Dr. Benjamin Newhouse, Dean Newhouse, and we are appreciative of your willingness to participate in this discussion. A part of what we want to talk about is economic development, and particularly around the industrial park. And Dean Newhouse, who has been a dean at Tuskegee University and also
North Carolina
Central, has himself an impressive resume. You know, he's a PhD. He is a certified public accountant. He is an entrepreneur. He is a professor, dean of a department. I've actually seen his whole resume, and because we've done other work together, and it is awesome. I can't steal anything from it, but it's awesome. Dean, I really would like to begin this discussion about economic development talking about President Booker T. Washington, because of his role, I believe, as the father of economic development, and with Tuskegee being the catalytic center for investment in the growth and development of the African American educated elite on one hand, and on developing the assets of what we now know as Tuskegee University. Could you share some of your thinking about Dr. Washington's effort?
He certainly wanted to help the 9/10ths. You know, that part other than the talented 10th.
Yeah.
And his presumption was that self-help and economic activity could allow the 9/10ths to help themselves. Mm-hmm. And so, as opposed to trying to invent stuff, I think he recognized that if you solve the problems that people have, you know, if you are building houses and you need brick, make brick. If you need clothing, make clothing. Whatever needs the community had, let's respond to them and solve them. For whatever reason, there were some other folk who thought that politics might then lead, you know, to our development, and that through political and removing of legal barriers, we could then obtain the respect of others. I won't just say white people, but respect of others.
The larger society.
The larger society. What Booker T basically said is they only respect money. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have any money and you got plenty of politics, you're still in the same place.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're still struggling with that.
Yeah.
You know, it's not the case, you know, for example, here in Tuskegee, that all our needs are met. Mm-hmm. But it appears that the people who are here have not zeroed in on meeting the unmet needs of this community. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And to the extent that a park, industrial park, will allow us to do that, then we are on the way to obtaining the only respect that matters. That's called self-respect. Mm-hmm. So it really don't matter whether they respect you or not. If you respect yourself, mm-hmm. and we have a tendency to go back to net worth as your measure of well-offness, Booker T said, let's get more of that net worth, which would then lead to self-respect, and which then may lead to the respect of others.
Well, to a large degree, you know, his focus on the 9/10ths makes a lot of sense to me.
Oh, yeah.
And because when we look around and we look at the talented 10th, there is obviously a very talented African American elite in this country.
And there is.
I mean, you know, they're in entertainment, they're in business, corporate positions, they're in politics. You know, the notion of having an African American president, with all due respect, hasn't significantly changed the condition of the 9/10ths. Although, to a large degree, it's fulfilled the notion that we wanted equity, that we wanted parity in terms of civil rights and in terms of politics. So it is, to a large degree, we have maximized and probably reached a point of diminishing returns on that strategy. You know.
Well, you know, I've always asked this question myself. did the 9/10s, really ever care about the talent 10 about the 9/10s? Now, they certainly wanted the underclass to be invisible. Because to the extent that they saw that their reflection of being unrespectable reflecting poorly upon them.
Sure.
Okay, so that if we could just get them to chill, adopt mainstream values. When you hear the term a rising tide will raise all boats. We have people with no boat. And see, the underclass have no boat, no boat. Now we do agree that the talented 10 had a boat. Yeah. So and so I'm looking for the boatless people. How can we
the Haitians.
The Haitians, and even though we sort of said in jest, this is really not about philosophy, but it's about money. And so we have to come up with some strategy, some techniques that is going to put money in the pockets of people who are been constrained either in school, in church, who literally had no money to start. And we know that there are ways to do it. But the models, basically have a high price. For one, it could be education. It could be your record in terms of being incarcerated. It could have been some minor drug offense, or it could have been minor traffic offense. I mean, we know that the system, low FICO score. We know there are a lot of things that can affect the people who don't have a boat at all from even getting started. I think Booker T recognized that.
It's kind of a carrot on the stick technique.
Yeah.
That you dangle all these opportunities out here on this long extended stick, and there's a list of things on that stick that you just outlined that you've got to overcome to get to the carrot. And and unfortunately for many people, you never get to it.
Your time ran out.
Yeah. 40% poverty rate, ridiculous unemployment. We were talking before the show about the loss of 2,000 jobs. Although I don't care anything about a gambling casino, I do care about 2,000 jobs. I mean, that's an issue, and the politics of it, and who did what to who. The bottom line is we lost 2,000 jobs. We lost millions of dollars out of the local economy. That is one of the reasons that I took on this task of developing the industrial park.
Yeah. And
by working with the Economic Development Administration and working with the Delta Regional Authority, I discovered that, there's a stick here and there's a carrot dangling out on the end of it too.
Yeah, I think you are correct. When you see people who have a desire to work, and when you raise the question, they say, well, let me know what can I do. At this point, you really can't tell them to do anything other than hope. You can't identify any employers to be able to fill in that gap of those 2,000 missing jobs.
We're going to take a break, and we'll come back.
I'm C.K. Johnson here in Tuskegee Furnishings down on Tuskegee Square, and you're watching Tuskegee Virtual TV.
Hello, this is Mayor Johnny Ford, and I'm watching Tuskegee Virtual TV.
Welcome back. Let's move on. I want to talk about this 100-acre industrial and business park that is here in Tuskegee, and some efforts have been made by the city to try to develop it, but they have not been able to get any big players to come in. And most of these industrial parks, that's really what they're thriving. When you look at that 6-county area of Birmingham, which has probably the largest concentration of industrial parks in the state, with Shelby County being the fastest growing county in the state. They've got a mega site, all this acreage, and a lot of that is undeveloped. Here we are in Tuskegee with what is essentially a third tier industrial park. You know, it has some amenities, some advantages, but not necessarily something that a big player would want. But it's still important. Can you share your insights on that?
You know, I moved here 30 years ago, and the motto says you have a freeway, you got an airport, you have a university. There should be no reason why we are not a mecca. But we do know that there have been some other locations in Mississippi and South Carolina who had less than what we have, but what they do have is they're well organized. And so that when I remember when I met you initially, the very first time we zeroed in on, in order to have success, you got to be organized.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah.
And I suspect that during the time that we have known each other, a lot of things have changed, but our sense of disorganization is still in place.
It's a constant.
Yeah. So what it tells me is that we're not resource constrained. We are organizationally constrained. And so I think once we are honest ourselves on what we have to do organizationally to make it work. See, it's not unreasonable to ask, well, is the VA and the county and the city and utility board, are they all on the same page? And the answer is maybe or no. But the answer is probably no.
Yeah.
And then the question becomes, if not, why not?
Well, I think that my experience in working in development, and I've been at it for a while now. I was a handsome young boy when I started this.
Okay.
Now I'm an old gray beard, you know. The reality is that people have their agendas. And in many cases what I've discovered is those agendas don't gel. And a part of the role that I've had to play as a development person was to find out in part what their agendas were and see if there were any intersections, you know.
Well, let's raise this question. You asked, why is it important to have an industrial park? And my initial answer is we need to have as many examples of success in this county as we can find. And so what a ongoing business that is running, creating jobs, making the community better, works. Now, my own perception has been the barriers to growth have been myths. Okay, for example, the myth of educational quality. There's no evidence to support it, and the public schools here are not doing a good job. And if you sort of go through all of the other variables, education level, this is one of the highest educated communities in the state.
Of course,
yeah. So that when we sort of moved down the list and we said, well, do we have the demographic resources? They all in place. Now, what we do observe is people from Opelika who work in Tuskegee, people in Union Springs who work in Tuskegee. So we know that we are an importer of talent, of people who don't spend any money here.
An exporter of income.
An exporter of income.
Yeah.
And the goal becomes, what do we have to do to stop that? Now, I'm hoping that when we establish an industrial park, it don't continue to be exporting income, and importing people from Tallahassee and other communities.
That's a workforce issue.
Yeah.
That's a workforce issue, and excuse me. And as you're probably aware, Macon County is one of the 2 or 3 counties that has resources for workforce development. So part of what you've got to do, again, it's a lot of this is thinking outside of the box. If you have an industrial park and And you're primarily going to be focused on small and medium-sized enterprises that can bring you 10 to 20 jobs. If you can do that, right, then you can, as you invest, if you want to borrow from us, we create a revolving loan fund. You need working capital, you need fixed asset financing. A part of that is that you will give us jobs for local people. And the other part of that is that we've got workforce resources in place to get them job ready to perform what needs to be done in your facility. And I've been involved in those things, logistics trainings and other kind of things. So I've seen that this strategy can work. But again, it requires an organization. I'm on the Industrial Development Board, and the board, I think, is very, very important, although we haven't been as active as I would like it to be. But I think that Industrial Development Board is a very important focal point to engender these larger relationships with other organizations.
Have you guys given any thought to who the occupants of the industrial park might be?
Yeah, there's been some discussions, although I don't really want to have an open public discussion about that.
I mean, just
we are looking at companies that are capable of developing, going into supply lines for major corporations, supply lines for large construction companies, the capacity to move building materials, cleaning products, to build pallets. You know, those are the kinds of companies. Now, the downside, because one of the weaknesses is having a class of entrepreneurs. And, you know, I think we've had this discussion in the past. My view of the world is that many people who become entrepreneurs have been former lead management people in larger companies. You know, and when they exit that company, they are still in the mind of being a leader, of being a manager, and now recognized as a potential for them to be owners. So they go out and create these companies. If that class of entrepreneur doesn't exist in large numbers, you know, or even university professors with who could participate in the small business innovation research program, you know, and create companies and help us create a managerial class who eventually could be entrepreneurs. I want you to hold on that thought. We're going to take another break. We'll be right back.
You're watching Tuskegee Virtual TV.
Welcome to Tuskegee, Lionel Richie here. WallaceMedia is taking care of you.
My name is Zach Underwood, and you are watching Tuskegee Virtual TV. And you can watch any of our programs on demand at youtube.com/Tuskegee Virtual.
So, Doc, we know that the potential, right, is there, as we described in the last segment. And I appreciate the observation that you made off camera, that in Tuskegee, race is not an excuse. We know we have the talent, we know we have the ability, we have the land, we have the individual organizational structures, and I guess I wonder how we use that as leverage, to leverage Economic Development Administration, to leverage the Delta Regional Authority, Small Business Administration, HUD, USDA, for the development.
You know, we have to begin with a Las Vegas mindset. Here I am standing in the middle of the desert, wind blowing at 12 noon, windstorms, and say I don't care about the windstorms of the heat. We're gonna build it here, and they're gonna come. You know, I stood on the Hoover Dam, and I said, whatever they were smoking or drinking, the day they said, we are going to build this here, they had to be high. Now, we're not like Las Vegas. We're not in the middle of the desert. You know, this is the home of Rosa Parks. You know, and I can name all these folk who have been successful who started here. The only question is, are you going to get in that same line with Zora Neale Hurston, who was born in Nova Soldier? You know, we don't have a history here of limits that have been imposed. You know, when I met the Tuskegee Airmen, they said basically there were only two things they were concerned about. One was no regrets. Now what we need are people who come to the table here who have that same mindset, that this is our goal and we are going to do it. You know, I often ask people, how could this great university exist in this environment? You know, is it the case that the excellence only goes to Montgomery Road, and then once you cross the street, we fall off a cliff? It's because on campus, we understood the legacy of Booker T and Carver, and we preserve it, and we build upon it.
So that has to spread. That has to spread.
It's
and that's a
mindset.
part of making our case, creating the mindset to look at building the institutions. I mean, my argument is always that, you know, my generation has to build institutions that are greater than ourselves.
Let me begin with this. Suppose we have an industrial park. You know, I would say the criteria for every employee, a person looking for a job, are you prepared to, you know, to live here? If he said, no, I want, you know, to live in Tallahassee and work here, I said, no, you need to do is find you a job in Tallahassee. I mean, and we can do that in a non-discriminatory manner, because this is about building the Macon County Tuskegee institution. If you want to live there and work here, that's not part of our solution. See, right now, that's not the way we do it. We got ministers, you know, who live in Montgomery and Opelika. We got teachers who live in Montgomery and Opelika, who driving every day, you know, from there to here to earn money here, and who are not committed people in Tuskegee. I don't know how this town allow people to do that.
Well, you know, to be fair, I mean, you look at the VA, the same scenario.
Same scenario.
But I will say this, that, you know, you find talent where you can find it. And if we can produce talent, I go back to my argument about, you know, entrepreneurial talent, people who are ownership minded, beyond creating retail operations, mom and pop or otherwise, that the industrialist mentality is a little different. And the skill set for it, I do think some of that skill set is at the university, but I think there are people here locally who have the potential to be managers and entrepreneurs, and that the industrial park is a part of that. I'm not sure. I think.
No. I want us to be like Toyota.
Okay.
And when they say that the magic in Toyota is not in the steel, it's in the people. That's why we're the number one country in the world, because of our people. You know, they're the ones who make the difference. You know, and for those of us who had, you know, success, we can always say it was our people who made the difference. You know, and so that no matter what you're doing, industrial or recreational or whatever, you got to believe that this is a place. I remember when the kids used to ask me about how good is Tuskegee? Why should I go to college here? I said, when you leave my office and you see Chappie James' last plane, I'm looking for your plane. The one you're going to leave here.
Sure.
You know, I said, is that the case? We don't have to prove anything to anybody regarding living in Tuskegee. We got 100 years of history of people from here who achieve. What you bring to the table? I never had anybody to give me a response on that, bro. You know, I said, there's no accident that we are different here and that we achieve the way we do. You know, so in order for this to work, we got to believe in Tuskegee and Macon County that we have something to offer folk here that's going to make a difference.
I hear you, and I hope that that folk who are listening to this understand the importance of that. That Tuskegee is a unique place, and that although we stand on the shoulder of giants, many of us have the potential to be giants. And although great things have been done in Tuskegee, we're really just getting started. And the industrial park, we believe, is a critical part of the future of Tuskegee. creating businesses, creating jobs, creating a future. We have to realize that we've got to work together. And I do believe in Tuskegee. I think that we have to pressure these federal agencies, the Economic Development Administration, Delta Regional Authority, and others, USDA, SBA. But a part of what's is going to take is that we've got to put some skin in the game. We got to put some skin in the game, and that means that people have got to invest. So one of the discussions that we've been having is using crowdfunding. People are risk adverse. Despite everything that we've said, I find that investors are risk adverse. I mean, obviously, everybody that has money to invest wants to talk about the return on investment. And I would suggest that return on investment is not just economic. Give us some of your parting thoughts on that.
You know, see, I read history. You know, when Leon Sullivan, started, Zion,
Yes.
they had the same kind of bluff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they said, you need $1 million. So what, $2 million? And then when you come back, we'll talk.
Mm-hmm.
He brought a suitcase and laid it down. $2 million. And we got, and they got it from the members in the church who believe in Leon.
Mm-hmm.
You face the same struggle.
Mm-hmm.
There are people who we know who have the money, and we ought to be able to say, this is a game they're playing. What we'll do. You give us the opportunity to be able to bring this suitcase full of money and lay it on the table. Because see, once they see it, we can close back and get your money back.
Mm-hmm.
But see, they want to find out, are we creative enough to do what Leon did and to bring a suitcase full of money and said, if money's all you need, we got that.
Oh, okay. I see. Opportunities and deprivation.
Okay, what's next? What's your next bluff? See, we don't have people here now with that kind of attitude.
Yeah.
Who are willing to step up and respond to those kind of challenges.
Got to win or die trying. This has been a leadership forum. I want to thank Dean for taking his time to come and sit with us and provide some insights. We couldn't record the stuff that we talked about off camera, but it was exciting too. We'll see you again. God bless. Peace. Assalamu alaikum.
Good, bro.